progress would not exist without peer review. It would collapse.
Science sisters, they're here to talk.
I do believe in double-blind reviews.
Then
Things
you get
that you
the
make.
bill.
My idea is that if you get to the reviews, you should get a token.
I moved to an undisclosed location.
I'm trying to provide the review that I would like to get.
Science sisters, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Science Sisters. I'm your host Iris van Zelst and today I am joined by Adina Pusok. We are going to be talking about publishing in all of its many facets. So, what happens when you finally have done your research and written it up and then
You go on a holiday.
Yeah.
You take a break.
Yes, that is actually good. Well, that was the episode of Science Sisters.
Or you click on it, refresh until nothing happens.
Yes. Actually, I was very annoyed by that because in the JGR journals, it always said, please press submit. And that always feels like a momentous situation to be like, submit. But the button doesn't say submit. It says something like approve application or something. I'm like, I can't physically do that.
Yeah.
So always ever so slightly annoyed by that. But
And then every journal has a different button or different fields to fill, and then everything is confusing and you check like third time and then you finally submit.
Yeah. One thing I also didn't think was the case is that submitting it is submitting it and it takes 2 seconds, but it takes at least an hour because there's always so much other data and things you need to fill in. It's, you need to learn that takes time.
And then you finally submit it.
Yes.
There comes the weekend and Monday.
Yes.
And then you get an email from the handling editor. And it's like you have to resubmit it because you haven't numbered the lines correctly or something.
Yeah, there is one incorrect reference. We can't possibly consider it now. Okay. Submit it again. Everything is perfect.
Yes. Fingers crossed it goes into review. And then you see that status in review for months. And then you get back at some point after you forgot about the whole business. And then you get an email with corrections. You have to do it fast.
Yeah. The panic that's behind it is always like, hi, yes, this is what you need to do in 5 days, please. Oh my god.
And then you're like, shift your entire life. Stop everything you've been doing. And it's just like, start doing it.
Okay, so go back before we get the corrections. You are a reviewer.
We review other people's manuscripts. It's all secret, at least from my side. I always sign anonymous.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why?
Philosophy. That's my view of like how science should be done. I shouldn't care as much of who does the science. So I do believe in double-blind reviews. It's not happening, obviously, but from my side, I try to do it anonymously. And therefore, then they cannot judge who I am, and I try to be as objective as I can.
Interesting, because I share most of that philosophy, but I have the opposite outcome of always signing it.
Okay.
Because I also believe in double-blind reviews, or just being very open about it. Because I think if one side is blind, there's just this weird balance that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't like it if it's one-sided blind. Whoever is blind, I think either both or none. And if I know that they wrote something, I feel like they should also know that I wrote something.
I accept that there are different views. I don't think there is a jury on that.
No, I don't
or a
think what is
decision.
better. This is just kind of what I thought would work for me. But having said that, I do feel like I have been judged for who I am in the response to me of them clearly being higher ups and talking down of like, well, we've been doing it for years, and which is then kind of like, I'm trying my best here and you're just, ignoring my comments because I'm junior, because you could Google me because I wanted to be open.
It can go both ways, right? If you get a review from someone with a famous name, then you feel good about it if it's a positive review. If it's a negative review, very critical, you feel very bad about it. So I'm just trying to take the feelings out of the equation as much as I can and just kind of try to address the science that is in the manuscript and not who the authors are. And also the same way, they should not judge me who I am. I'm trying to give my honest opinion about the science.
I mean, I yeah, like I said, I definitely would like a double-blind review. But
that would be good. To be honest, I'm not sure why that is not happening.
It shouldn't be that difficult. Like,
it's like I think at some point the argument was that reviewers should get more credit, and the only way to get credit is to put your name there. It's also a bit of an intellectual property, which fair enough, because you give your opinion, and that's our currency in science. But yeah, I feel it becomes quite subjective. And potentially, if both the authors and the reviewers choose, we could do a name reveal at the end, right? The idea is to keep the process focused on the science.
Yeah, and as fair as possible.
Exactly.
And objective as possible. Yeah.
Exactly. How that is done, it's a bit difficult. There is a lot of pressure on early career scientists. On one hand, you want them to get exposure, get experience, and reviewing is a great experience. But at the same time, as you said, you might get some negative experiences if you get to review a paper written by a more senior member. I just choose to do my reviews anonymously.
Can you, as an editor, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but can you choose to force double blind on people?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think editors have that much power. I think it's journal
level
policy. Yeah. I think every journal is choosing that. I'm not quite sure how they justify the whole peer review process. I mean, we started talking about this kind of ideas a bit earlier, and we still feel that peer reviewing is kind of, we're doing a lot of work for very, very little.
Yes. I mean, you review for free.
Yes.
So.
And then you submit your manuscript for free. Then you have to pay.
Yes. And you also have to pay to read it afterwards.
Yes. Unless you're in a privileged position and you can access the
but then
journals.
the university has paid.
Yes, which is, again, not everyone is lucky to be in that position. So I think I wrote a blog post some time ago for EDU, and that's when I started looking a bit into the peer review process, and the philosophy behind it is that scientific progress would not exist without peer review. It would collapse. Everything, anyone would be able to publish whatever they want. Even now, sure, the peer review process is not perfect, or there is always subjectivity, who reviews, what kind of reviews they provide, more in depth, more to the surface, but it's still a very important part. And that's how we do and we correct science. So yeah, I still want a bit more recognition, or it would be nice, a bit more recognition.
So if you sign anonymously, how do you do that? Does it still go into your ORCID thing, or?
Yeah, so nowadays it's there's ORCID, I think there's Publons, which at some point I was I got very excited about it, right at the beginning when I started reviewing. I was oh, there's this another sort of social media, for geeks, obviously, where you could register anonymously your reviews. So it's kind of you can just forward the confirmation from the journal that you finished the review, and they register it kind of anonymously, that you register for that journal. It doesn't have to, no one has to know which article.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit keeping track, but I think the best, it's the automatic thing with ORCID. I think that's good. I think ORCID is becoming quite powerful. It keeps track of employment, publications, peer review, and also funding. So it's pretty much everything that someone in academia cares about. I think it's important at the beginning when you start reviewing, for example, an early career scientist starts reviewing, and then it's important to record the first reviews, and I was oh, I've reviewed for this journal and for this journal. I'm starting to have a catalog of journals, which is exciting. But after a while, you're yeah, I'm done. It's
I'm not at that stage yet. I'm still very much if it's a new journal, I'm game, whatever it is about.
I started my postdoc, my first postdoc, in San Diego, and I started telling people I haven't really reviewed a paper properly, by myself. Maybe secretly, within a month or two of that, the gates open and the plant just came. And then I was excited at the beginning, but then it was quite hard to keep up or to agree with every request. So I had to filter a lot the requests. And so I'm kind of only doing like the most interesting things, or something that I think is interesting. You never know,
No.
because you're only allowed to read one piece of abstract, and then like the manuscript could be in an awful state, which did happen. I was not happy. So, but you learn a lot. You learn so much. I think you learn how to write better, what kind of things not to submit to annoy reviewers. You learn how the process goes. You pay attention more on structure, on like how the experiment is being set up, the assumptions, and I think it's a really good exercise. You get to test, or you get to see different manuscripts at different stages, and you get very good opinions about some and very disappointed in other manuscripts. But yeah, you do have to go into detail if you want to do a good job. Some people, maybe this is like my experience, I got, going back to like we're both authors and reviewers. So as an author, I also got reviews of varying qualities, right? And I think that's everyone's experience. So it's, like I'm trying to provide the review that I would like to get in return.
Yeah.
I've also been in a case where both me and the other reviewer, because you're in together, like you can sort of like see the reviews from other people, only sometimes. But let's say like you can see the reviews from the other people, especially when you get the response back for the second review.
I always like to see, did you have the same feeling? Like, was I completely misguided? No.
Was I a bit too harsh or too critical? Of course, you want to be critical towards the work, right? Not towards the team.
Yeah.
But it's a very fine line. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's a bit, also interesting to see what did I miss? Yeah. So I was involved in this experience where both me and the other reviewer had very major concerns. Again, the manuscript, first of all, was in a pretty bad shape when it was submitted, and then even the corrections were very disappointing, and I personally thought the editor was too relaxed, and it was not okay. So it was like, out of a sudden, I saw the paper being accepted and all that, and it was like, it was still had some unresolved issues. So that's why I'm saying that was one of the negative parts or experiences that I've been into, and at that point you're like, I don't know I'm not quite sure what needs to be done. You can write to the editor, but they still have a power of decision, because it's a private entity, right? They decide what to be published. So yeah, we all hear like lots of things get published. Well, ideally, everything has to go through peer review, good peer review that filters out the errors and clarifies things and all that, but we all know that it's an imperfect process.
So, paper has been reviewed, you've done the corrections, whether they were major or minor. Finally, editor says it's accepted.
After months,
years. Yeah. 2 jobs afterwards. So you're like, this is done, or you think this is done, and then you get the bill. You get a bill, and it's a pretty big one usually.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and then what do? Do you actually have funding to pay those bills?
Sometimes.
Okay.
You have an extra video on that, which I think resonates very well with many people. I think there is a big issue, because we were co-authors on the Geodynamics 101 paper, and we got the comment that you're only getting a 50% discount because you all come from top universities. Which is true. But the reality is that we still don't have money.
Yeah, they're not paying. We're really good institutes, but they still don't want to pay.
It's because early career scientists, they don't necessarily have money for independent projects, which it is the reality of today. But even like in top institutes, not all research groups have the same amount of money, or have the amount of money to pay for the increasingly and ridiculous publication costs. I mean, to publish in Nature now is $10,000.
I mean, if to do it open access.
Still, which is so. Actually, there was actually a recent article arguing that actually all this open access drive and publication costs are just creating more inequality. And I agree. No one can afford to pay $10,000. It's yeah. Something I've discovered recently is that some universities have contracts with journals.
Yes.
Which is very useful to find out.
Yes. Do check with your library at the institute.
Exactly. And then also the universities might have discounts.
Or some universities have like that they always automatically publish open access in certain journals, like that extra fee is already.
Or again, it comes back to the funder, right? So some funding bodies, they require to publish everything open access, and they put the money right in the project grant. But again, not everyone has those grants. But postdocs can ask for a complete waiver of the fees. Some people ignore the bills. Some people...
Apparently that works. If you just ignore it for long enough, they just stop sending reminders.
I've heard that works, yes. I haven't tried that, but apparently it works.
Maybe next time when we're poor and don't have money to pay, just ignorance is bliss, no?
Exactly. Or some postdocs are like, well, I'm going to move anyways to another institution. They can just send me the bills to the old institution and I will not care.
Just change email addresses. They get an out of office forever. I'm sorry, I moved to an undisclosed location.
Something like that, which is so sad, right?
That's the way you need to deal with it. Oh my god.
Very, very sad. It's not that we should publish everything. Like, of course, like we should still like...
No, the peer review is important.
Yeah, we should strive to do science and publish it. But
there shouldn't be a monetary barriers that only the people from wealthy institutes can do it.
Exactly. I honestly think that if you... So my idea, my model, kind of like maybe how we can mitigate, maybe like journal editors and journal executives can listen. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Please do. Yes,
yeah.
Please listen.
My idea is that if you get to do reviews for that journal, you should get a token. You should get a token that goes into your, like, if you get accepted to be published, you get a discount. So for example, you do a review, you get 5% discount. You do a second review, you get a cumulative 10%.
It's like at the supermarket.
Exactly. Why not?
I would love that.
That would, of course, like, okay, there is a danger of turning that into a mechanism only for the sake of getting discounts for publishing. But I think it would be very, very helpful for early career scientists.
Have you pitched it to anyone beyond my amazing audience, which definitely includes journal executives?
To some people.
How was the response?
They're like, yes. There is always the danger. You don't want to monetize the peer review process. It can go into the other extreme.
Yes. But I do like the idea of token.
Or just to of course you would still need to do quite a bit of work to get complete waiver, but so I'm trying to the goal is to keep the quality of the reviews high, right? But you also would like to, hey, can you give me some support here, because publishing is so expensive. Exactly. So we're just kind of like in minus all the time.
Yeah, deeply. Yeah. Oh, I love that idea.
That would be nice. It would be kind of like an actual way to help publishing. So maybe the journals will start actually rewarding the review work.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And we've kind of sort of paid the bill. And now we have...
shiny
new
paper?
Yes.
No, it has to go through copy editing.
Yeah, I was going to say... We have the proofs. That's like the worst part. Oh no. That's actually before the bill.
That's the cringe bit.
Oh my god.
Because you go through the entire process of writing the manuscript, making it perfect, go through the review, and then the proofs come back and I think this is happening to everyone, and you're like, why am I doing this again?
Yeah, because like it's a copy editor. The only thing I ask of you is to copy it. Like literally, please don't think you know better than I do what I wanted to write.
This is like, it's like the academic nightmare, right? Like, is the or like the worst one. And actually, like, I know people who didn't check the proofs.
Oh,
They were
always check
like,
the proof.
because by that point you're so tired with the process. You just want to see it out. So I know people.
So badly.
I know people who just approved.
Never just approve.
It's dangerous. Yeah, exactly.
It's very dangerous.
So, lucky enough, I heard those stories early in my PhD.
Yeah.
So
Always check the proofs. Well, thank you so much for being here.
thank you.
I think we've all learned a lot about the publication process, all its pros and cons, and if you want any more information, you can check the description down below. Adina's blog post will be linked there as well, and if you liked it, like it, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Bye.
Someone had written about the Nazca plate, and the copy editor or the typesetter changed it into the Nazi plate because clearly that was what the paper was about. And you're like, holy freaking moly, what the hell happened here?